This is Amend and Progress, your go-to podcast from Vidori for all things promotional material review. Get ready for actionable insights, valuable perspectives, and best practices to elevate your workflow and team morale.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Benchmark Symposium 2024, a special edition of Amend and Progress, where we're focusing our conversation specifically on Vidori's 2024 State of Promotional Review Benchmarks Report. I'm your host, Annalise, and today we're going to be sort of peeling back the curtain of this year's report, talking about some of the data that we're sharing within the report, some of the analysis behind it, and just uncovering some of the great information that's included. Joining me in the conversation today is Jessy Horrell, VP of Professional Services at Vidori. Jessy, thanks for coming on. Delighted to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
So, yay, benchmarks. I know you and I specifically love digging in and talking about this. So, really excited to just share with others what we found. What's included in this year's report, and sort of what can folks expect when they get the full download from us. But before we move into sort of the specific data or findings or analysis, we care deeply about this. This is our fourth annual benchmarks report. We care a lot. And I'm curious just to have you share sort of the Vidori perspective on, what's the importance of a report like this, and what help or guidance does it provide to those life science organizations that decide to engage with the content and download it?
I think that the promotional review process is something it's obviously required for all life sciences companies. And yet it looks very, very different company to company. And I think everyone agrees that it is often viewed as complex and can be very nuanced, and there are various interpretations of how to go about doing it. And so I think anytime you have the opportunity to aggregate data, all of the performance data across all of our customers and roll it all up, it really just helps us understand how the industry at wide is enduring that process and how companies are performing. How quickly are they getting content through that process, which ultimately translates into how quickly they're able to get their approved messages to market. And as you said, we are passionate about data, and we want to share these findings with the industry at wide to advance the conversation and really just to share in sort of that belief that we have that data plays such a centric role in improving upon our own work.
We benchmark all over the place in our personal and professional lives. For us, we don't see this as an exception. So, I think it's just important to sort of break a little bit of that down and just help explain why we spend so much time and energy and emphasis on this. Let's get to the data. I'd love to just share. So for those that are watching on video, we'll share these metrics on the screen here. But let's just go. So there are four sort of key metrics that we present as roll-ups. And so these are across all industries, all market segments, all team sizes. So let's go maybe through these one by one. I'll have you maybe just like introduce the metric and then talk through the data that we're seeing in this year's report. So let's start with job duration. Could you please just define this for us and then talk through the metrics we're seeing in this year's report?
Job duration is defined as the number of days it takes to review and approve a new piece of content. So this includes the time to prepare it in the platform, do the substantiations, review, consolidate feedback, and then ultimately provide the final approval. And what we saw as far as the average this year, it was 13.8 days. And for the median, 7.3 days.
And then let's move to review duration next.
So review duration is the number of days it takes for a review team to review and provide feedback on a piece of content. And for the average, we saw that at 6.6 days, and for the median at 3.9 days.
Okay, days incorporating feedback.
So this is the number of days it takes to revise a piece of content before rerouting it for review and approval. So presumably you've gotten feedback on the cycle. A piece has required at least another cycle. And so this is the average number of days kind of going through that process where it goes back to the submitter for those revisions. The average number of days we saw this year was 7.4. And the median of 2 days.
And then finally, number of circulations.
So number of circulations is the number of times that a piece of content is routed for review before it's approved. The average came in at 1.5 days.
And we don't have a median for this one, which makes sense. And I think for those interested in sort of the difference between average and median here, when you download the full report from us, you'll get a bit of explanation on sort of why we capture both of those metrics, the differences, how to think about them side by side. So be sure to look for that in the report. Okay, so we've got the roll up. We sort of have the lay of the land here. And, you and I talk all the time about year over year. What changed? How do the numbers look different this year over the next? And we also talk about, well, no 2 years are the same. And so comparisons can be, take anything with a grain of salt because truly you can't compare two exact years. There's a lot of differences and nuances and context and challenges, all the things. However, at a high level, there are some things that we notice both in talking to our customers through the surveying that's included in this year's report, and then just our own understanding of process differences in 2024. Can you just talk me through some of those high level changes we saw between 2023 and 2024 and some rationale that we're introducing or analysis behind why the numbers are changing?
So across the board, we saw a change between the 2024 numbers from 2023 by about a day, give or take. Some a little bit, actually less than that. But nevertheless, basically a reduction overall. So slightly faster times. Like you said, we can hypothesize, why that may be. But so the first thing that we go to is, well, were these performance metrics for the same volume of content, right? Because presumably any process that has more or less volume going through can presumably perform faster if there's less volume. And we actually did see just that. So our customer surveys revealed that resource constraints faced in 2023 have essentially persisted into 2024. These ongoing challenges, reduced staffing, tighter budgets, appear to be directly impacting content creation. Because when we looked at the data, we saw there was a reduction in content throughput in 2024. So companies on average produced fewer new promotional pieces in 2024 when compared to 2023. So this could be an explanation, as I sort of said at the onset, that if you have less to do, you can do that faster. Again, just a hypothesis, not necessarily a tried and true explanation. I think what you said is true, that we do anticipate and expect variance year over year. Any given year at a given company is different. There are several reasons why their own individual performance changes. They could be bringing a product to market in a given year. They could have faced some resource constraints or some turnover or other conditions that ultimately resulted in performance variances for them individually. So again, when you aggregate that and roll that all up, you may or may not see that reflected in an upward or downward trend.
We talk about this with our customers too. We expect it's going to look different.
Mm-hmm.
We expect change, we expect variance, and so we very much expected things to be different in 2024. And to all the points you made, there's lots of reasons and rationale for it. But I think it's also, to your comments, what's the backdrop? Did you expand? Does the team look different? Content throughput? There's so many factors. And so I think it's just important to have sort of this wraparound conversation when it comes to the variance, because there's just so many factors to consider. We expect change to happen. It's normal. So it's just part of looking at this data and analyzing it year over year, basically.
Right. And like, as you put it, is sort of the macro thing that is, maybe consistent across all those companies in the face of all of the individual nuance, is that, economic conditions do, still appear to be impacting our customers. And so that's sort of the one common that we do see.
Okay, great. So roll-up metrics, high levels is sort of what we're seeing year over year, rationales. What are some other things you're excited about in this year's report, or what are some other points of interest that you want to draw folks' attention to as they, download and consume the content?
The other one that I think is really interesting and we're newly bringing into this year's report is that we actually looked at the data by customer age. So the number of years that our customers have been using the platform and what is their overall speed to market. And what was really fascinating to find is there was a direct correlation in the number of years that you've spent on the platform and the number of months and your speed, which implies that you've been optimizing your process more and more. And over time, you basically see a downward trend in your speed, and you've invested in your process. The old adage of what gets measured gets improved upon comes to mind here. And so what this means to me is the use of a system plays a role in driving efficiency. And so I think it's really fascinating and interesting to sit with that data, and to recognize the true value of software in this complex process of promotional review.
Yeah, super interesting. There are just so many good nooks and crannies in this year's report, and I'm just so excited for folks to download it and to just take a look and get some reactions. So thanks for walking through some of those new elements. I think it is just exciting. Every year we try to introduce something new or present things in a new way, and so always just excited to get folks' reactions. So okay, we talked about why benchmark at the beginning, the importance of it, why we bother with it. Apart from downloading the report, where should people start with benchmarks? Where do you start this relationship with benchmarking as it relates to your promotional review process, other than simply knowing what the benchmarks are?
Yeah, so I think if you're in a position where you're using a platform today, you can basically immediately use this report. You can download it, you can grab the numbers out of it, you should be able to compare those against the numbers that you have out of your system today, which is good. And it can inspire you to peel back the layers of your own onion and uncover, why you may or may not be performing close to the benchmark. And if it isn't obvious, the benchmark report not only has those top level metrics that I verbally covered here today, but it actually also represents those same figures in different cohort reports. So by industry, by subsegment, by team size. So you can kind of find the benchmark that you think, best represents you or look at yourself kind of across multiple different cohorts. And there are a couple different benchmarks for you to consider. So I think you can immediately sort of internalize that information, compare your organization against those sets of benchmarks to see where you are. And from there, you can dig deeper. You can potentially uncover reasons why you may not be close to that benchmark, and you can prioritize tactics to improve upon your own process. And if you aren't using a system and you're interested in really kind of understanding your speed, this year there's actually a new component that we've sort of attached onto this report called the Time Study Toolkit. And so we are giving you a turnkey process to go about collecting data so that you too can participate and you too can see, how your metrics are bumping up against these benchmarks, or giving you, a starting point for what else you might want to do with that information.
Really exciting stuff. Well, Jessy, thank you so much for joining. And thank you just for your, as one of the architects of this year's report, just thank you for coming on and talking us through this. I'm just incredibly excited to have people dig into the report and learn more about their own process. So appreciate you coming on today.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that's it for today's episode. Go download the benchmarks report. We are incredibly excited about introducing this new set of data, all of the new nuances and context that Jessy has talked us through today. So to download the report, go to vidori.com/2024 benchmarks. You'll get access to the entire benchmarks report through that link, as well as if you're interested in accessing that toolkit that is included within the report this year as well. This is one of many Benchmark Symposium videos that we're going to be doing. So if you are not subscribed to Amend and Progress today, now is a good time to start as we get into these really interesting conversations around the 2024 benchmarks data. You can subscribe to Amend and Progress on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also follow Vidori on LinkedIn. We do a lot of social content there. Ask us questions. Give us feedback on this year's report. We would love to engage you all in digging through the data and learning what you're coming away with from downloading the report. Until next time, this is Annalise signing off for 2024 Benchmark Symposium. Have a fantastic day.